Hello everybody, and welcome back to another session of A Sports Guy's Therapy. Today we're taking a look at the top 25 free agents in the NFL before the official period kicks off. Okay, so gonna level with you. I never knew that there was a legal tampering period until about a few hours ago. I've been a fan for a long time, and I guess I just never noticed it. Feel like I need a therapy session for that. But it's alright. We're going to let some of the signings happen, and then we're going to analyze them later this week. So for now, we're going to be taking a look at all of the trades that have happened this offseason and give each of them a grade. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're about to dive into some of these trades. We're about to look in and see what were some of these teams thinking. Was it good? Was it smart? Was it dumb? Was it not? So let's just dive right in. We're going to kick this one off with Max Crosby to the Ravens for a 26 and 27 first-round pick. So I'm going to grade each team here based off of what I think they should have done. So for the Ravens, this is tough. I'm going to start with the Raiders. With the Raiders, I got to give it an A tier ranking. And the reason I'm giving this an A-tier ranking is because this team desperately needs to rebuild. They were the worst team in the league last year. They look terrible. And they have some pieces already together. That O-line is not terrible, but they've got some defensive pieces, and Max Crosby right now is a top 10 defensive player in the league. However, there's some debate. Is he top 5? Maybe, probably, but maybe around like 7, 8. So I think to get 2 first-round picks, one this year and one next year, that's the kind of move you got to make when you're rebuilding. Now, the only reason I don't put this in S tier is that they could have gotten some more picks, I think. Another 3rd or 5th. I think that could have maybe helped them a little bit. And they're losing an elite edge rusher. And I think now that I've kind of talked this out, I think I'm actually going to lower this to B tier. I mean, look, it's the kind of trade you got to make whenever you're rebuilding like they are, but you're losing a hell of a player, and that was your defensive piece. So he could have led the defense. Fernando Mendoza, not confirmed, but probably who the Raiders are going to take at number 1. That could have been your offensive piece. So I mean, I get it, but again, they didn't really get much of a late round return either. They could have gotten maybe another player, even if it's a backup, or just another piece to make that trade a little bit more valuable. As for the Ravens, giving up 2 firsts when you're in that position is rough, even though the Ravens don't necessarily hit on a lot of their picks. They actually have a history of hitting on some of them and then some of them turning out to be not so good. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, they've definitely hit on some of their picks. I think Lindenbaum, even though they haven't re-signed him, was a good pick. And I think, obviously, Kyle Hamilton was just an amazing pick. 2 firsts for 28. Here's my problem with this pick. If this was like a team that didn't make the AFC Championship or like made it but then didn't go to the Super Bowl, I'd say this was probably a good trade. But they were 500 last year. They missed the playoffs. They're going to have a new coach, and that new coach is now not going to be able to build what they want to build. They're going to have no picks. I think if this was another team, if this was like another borderline contender, maybe like the Bills or something, I think I'd give this a little higher, but they are getting a stud player on defense, and they need a defensive push. So I think I'm also going to give the Ravens a B tier grade for this. He is also, going back to that age point, he is 29 years old. So, you know, and edge rushers nowadays can last well into their 30s, but for the most part, or maybe on average is a better way of saying that, edge rusher, you know, it's like any player. Like once they turn 33, they're kind of out of their prime. So we'll see. I think overall it's probably a good trade, but I don't know. I mean, it's just more the situation regarding the Ravens right now that I maybe doubt that that's the best option available. Anyway, moving on to Rashawn Gary. The Packers parted away with Rashawn Gary and sent him to the rival Dallas Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. So, I'm going to start with Dallas on this one. I'm going to go ahead and give it an A tier. All right, look, Dallas needs defensive help. Dorrance Armstrong's no longer in the building. Micah Parsons is no longer in the building. They've said goodbye to a lot of defensive players. And giving up a 4th-round pick, it's a mid-round pick. It's an early day 3 pick for what could be a first-round talent. I think it's a great deal. The only reason that this isn't S tier is because Rashawn Gary has been very inconsistent. I mean, we've seen his highs, and when he's healthy, when he's on the field, when he's focused, he's a good football player. He can cause disruption to the O-line, to the opposing quarterback. The only problem, he's just very inconsistent. So it just depends on what Rashawn Gary you're going to get. But overall, that's the kind of move you make when you're trying to get back into the ring. I'm telling you, that's I don't give the Cowboys a lot of credit. There's only a few teams in the league I don't give a lot of credit to most of the time in their recent few years of operation, just because they tend to not make very smart decisions. I am going to give this an A tier. I think that's a great trade by Dallas. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, you let go of a 4th-round pick. I mean, yeah, you know, I'm not trying to devalue the 4th-round pick or anything like that. There's certainly been some great players that have come into the league on 4th-round picks, but at least it wasn't like a 3rd or a 2nd. As for the Packers, man, I get he was inconsistent. I just kind of feel like they gave up on him too quickly. I'm going to give this a C tier. I think they gave up on him a little too quickly. I think, yeah, maybe give him another year to, you know, play alongside Lucas Van Ness, play alongside some Edgerrin Cooper, some other defensive pieces that they have. Micah Parsons. I think now Micah's going to be carrying a lot of that defense, which, to be fair, he already did. This season it was like Micah's defense show. And that was all that the Packers defense was, because when he went down, the Packers defense pulled a Houdini and disappeared. But I still think, you know, just getting a 4th-rounder for him, I mean, yeah, it clears cap, but I don't know. I feel like there maybe could have been a team that was maybe willing to part with like a 3rd or like a player for him. I just think a 4th is a little bit of a low value, so I'm going to give that trade a C tier. Moving on to Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Jets. All right, Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's a 29-year-old safety. He's kind of had an up-and-down career, one filled with some just kind of mediocre performance and some with like all-pro performance. It's just dependent on what team he's on. However, for this, I'm going to start with the Jets. I'm going to give this an S tier. I rarely thank the Jets. I rarely say anything good about the Jets. The Jets have been one of the most incompetent teams in the 21st century. However, a 7th-rounder for a potential all-star safety who not only can perform well on the field, he has the opportunity to perform well on the field, he also is going to be a great mentor for Aaron Glenn's defensive players, his up-and-comers, his defensive backfield. We know Aaron Glenn is a defensive guy. Trading for a safety that can mentor some of those guys who's had all-pro success, who has seen what a winning team looks like, for just a 7th-round pick, S-tier trade. I don't even care if he doesn't play a snap. The fact that you gave up practically nothing to take a chance on it, this is the only time I'm going to say a potential trade like this, where it's, and I don't mean like a potential, I mean a trade based all on potential. He might not play a snap. Who knows? He probably will, and he'll probably be pretty decent. He'll probably be an upgrade over whoever the Jets had at that position. For a 7th-round pick, I think that's an S-tier trade. Now, if it's like a 5th, this is coming down to an A. If it's like a 4th, 3rd, definitely down to a B. But for a 7th, I mean, come on. That's a steal right there. I'm going to give the Dolphins... And for this, I'm going to give the Dolphins a C tier on this trade. I don't fault them at all for splitting with Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've got to rebuild. They're releasing Tua. It's a full rebuild. Coach, team, everything. I totally understand it. However, same reason I gave the Packers a C. They probably could have found a team to give them a 6th. At the end of the day, you trade them. You don't have to have that dead money in there. So I am going to give them a C. I could maybe give that a B. I just think they could have probably gotten like a player out of that trade, but overall, I totally understand why they're doing that, and it's a fine trade to make when you're in that kind of position. Moving on, Michael Pittman to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a late round draft swap. Now, as of me recording this video, we don't have the details on what this is. My guess is they're going to be swapping sixes or swapping fifths, swapping fives or swapping sixes. And if that's the case, if the Steelers truly are getting a player and all they have to do is swap, and they're already close together in the draft, I've got to go ahead and give the Steelers an S tier. And the only reason I'm doing that, look, Michael Pittman, he's had his ups and downs. He's never really evolved into this #1 receiver that a lot of players thought that he could. However, he's also been with the Colts his entire career, and we've seen enough instances of a player leaving their team and balling out on another one. It's whatever the NFL's got scripted this time around. I mean, we've seen it with quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, but we've seen it with receivers too. I think if you're just swapping a 5 and you're already not picking that far apart anyway, might as well. I mean, hey, you're getting a decent player on a decent contract who could turn into something, especially if Aaron Rodgers stays another season. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers is going to ball out now that he's got Michael Pittman on the team, but Michael Pittman could probably be developed by a legendary quarterback such as Rodgers, who still can play. You know, not as good as he used to, but he can still play better than half the quarterbacks in the league. I'm giving the Steelers an S on this one. The Colts, for the same reason, giving them a C. I think you move up a little bit, or maybe you move back. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So the Steelers move up. Okay, if they are swapping 5s or swapping 6s, the Steelers move up to get Pittman and absorb his contract, while the Colts go backwards and lose Pittman. So for the Colts, it was a salary dump. The Steelers get part of that salary. They re-sign him. Salary dump for the Colts, so they have more money to sign Alec Pierce. I'm giving this a D. This is terrible. Is there an F on this? I don't see an F. I didn't give myself an F. This is an F tier trade, actually. Okay. You move back just to salary dump on a player. Now you don't have that 1-2 punch, and you re-sign Alec Pierce for $29 million a year? This is insane. That's a D trade. That sucks. I get it. It's a salary dump move. You have more to play with in free agency. But they already dumped Zaire Franklin to the Packers. Speaking of, Zaire Franklin to the Packers. They traded Zaire Franklin to the Packers for defensive tackle Colby Wooden. So for the Colts, getting Colby Wooden, I'm giving this a C. I think Zaire Franklin was the league's leading tackler in 2024. Then he had he stepped back. He's 29 years old right now. He stepped back. Didn't look as good, but, had a down year. Okay, Colby Wooden is a rotational defensive tackle who, has promise, definitely, but has not showed it on the field just yet. So dumping Zaire Franklin for Colby Wooden, I just don't. I get it. They're dumping a starter, building room for more players that come in, while building depth at D tackle. It's smart. I could maybe, if I think about it, I could maybe give it up to a B. It's just that Zaire Franklin has started many games and is still only, I think, 29. Colby Wooden is, I think, 25, 24. So he's younger, so you could maybe build around that, but he's been rotational. He didn't have a sack last year. I think it's a decent move, but definitely not one that, maybe if you get like a 5th with it, I could definitely bump it up then. But just a flat trade, I think it's okay. It's not bad, it's not good. It's just kind of a trade you make to build depth. Meanwhile, for the Packers, I'm going to go ahead and give this an A tier, especially because they just dumped Rashawn Gary, so now they're getting Zaire Franklin. I think that's a good move. Zaire Franklin, he's more of a traditional linebacker than an edge rusher, but still, that frees up Edgerrin Cooper to be in a more hybrid role or whatever they're wanting to do for them, and then getting rid of a D tackle that was just a backup. So I think that's a good trade overall. You are absorbing that salary, but it's not like the Packers don't have that cap to play with. So I think it's a good move on the Packers. Moving on, Titus Howard, O-lineman, from the Houston Texans to the Cleveland Browns for a 5th round pick. So Titus Howard, he's always showed promise, right? He's never really elevated his game to the next level, but he's played tackle, he's played guard, he can kind of go wherever you want him to on the O-line. He just hasn't been that elite. So the Browns give up a 5th to try to see if he's worth something. And I think that's a pretty good trade. I'm going to give that a B tier. I think Titus Howard is probably going to improve your O-line. The question is just how much. And I don't think it's a ton, but it is an improvement for a Browns team that just lost, I think, 3 of their 5 O-line starters. And I think 2 of them were guards. So I get that. So decent trade, a 5th. I mean, you got to try it. Their O-linemen are a shortage in today's league. And for the Texans, go ahead and give this a D. All right, look, the value's not bad at all. I think a 5th round for a player you knew you weren't going to keep is not bad. The only problem is the Texans' O-line was one of the worst in the league. Titus Howard was one of the few bright spots. Now, he wasn't great. It was Ed Ingram was the best player on O-line this year. And Titus Howard was like, okay, he's average. He just wasn't that good. But to get rid of that for no clear plan, they haven't traded for another O-lineman. They haven't made any other signings in free agency. I don't know what you're doing. You got to keep some of the O-line intact, considering they traded away Juice Scruggs, which I'm going to get to in another minute. They traded away another O-lineman, and then I think they cut another O-lineman. Now they re-signed Trent Brown. But at the end of the day, I just don't know. I don't see the vision. I get they're trying to revamp their O-line completely, but I think they haven't gotten to the part where they then bring in the new players, and they're missing out on that opportunity because I haven't seen any reports of the Texans signing any new O-linemen or trading for anybody. They've re-signed Trent Brown. I don't think they've re-signed Ingram yet, Ed Ingram, but who knows? Maybe they're in talks right now, and maybe come draft night, this makes a lot more sense. Maybe they trade up, but like I said, a 5th rounder is not that bad. I'm actually going to move this up to C. I am, because it's not the worst, but I just don't know I don't know the vision, and I don't think cutting away an already O-line and he's not even the worst part of it. So I just don't know. We'll have to see. Moving on, as I mentioned earlier, O-lineman Juice Scruggs to Detroit. So it's O-lineman Juice Scruggs and a 6th and a 7th to Detroit in exchange for running back David Montgomery. So for the Texans, I'm going to give this an A tier. I am. David Montgomery is a great player. He's, in my opinion, the best running back 2 in the league. So great player. I think the Texans needed a run game. They needed help. Joe Mixon mysteriously missed all of the season with a non-football related injury. Nick Chubb is probably not coming back. Woody Marks had a decent rookie season, but not anything that's like running back number 1. And Dameon Pierce is, I think it's a while from his rookie season. I think he's kind of a running back 3 at this point. So getting David Montgomery for an O-lineman that you weren't going to keep and a couple late picks, I think is decent. The only reason that this doesn't go to S tier is because what I said during the Titus Howard bit. You're trading away O-linemen that, while they were a problem for Houston last year, you also could use this offseason to develop them further instead of just cutting away every single piece of your O-line and hoping for just a whole new reset. That and giving away a 6 and a 7 is a little heavy for a running back that's 29 years old, albeit he is a good running back. And for the Lions, I'm going to go ahead and give this a C. I think this was clearly just a salary dump move. They were going to maybe draft a young guy. I get it. It's fine. And I think Juice Scruggs is going to be a depth player. He's not going to probably start. And then getting an extra 6-7, I think that's fine. But I just don't know. It's one of those things where maybe come draft night we could revisit these and maybe move that trade up. Maybe they use that 6th and 7th to move up to get a 4th round or a 5th round and then draft a beast. I don't know. Just right now, I'm feeling a C tier for them on this trade. It's not bad. I think you got more value out of some of these teams for some of their players that they've traded, but I just don't think Juice Scruggs is going to be able to get you back to the playoff contention. But who knows? Maybe he balls out next year. And last but certainly not least, Trent McDuffie, the biggest cornerback trade this year. Trent McDuffie, a solid player for the Chiefs, to the LA Rams for a first, a fifth, a sixth, and a 27th third. So I'm going to start with the Chiefs. I'm giving this an S tier. And I know what you're thinking. But, Brandon, they don't have a cornerback now. They don't have anybody. And I would say that's true. But they do have 2 first-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, 2 sixth-round picks, and 2 third-rounders next year for a player that is pretty good. I mean, he's a great player. But is he that guy? You know what I mean? Is he a top cornerback in the league? He's pretty good. Definitely Pro Bowler. I think he made a second-team All-Pro a couple of years ago. But to get that much of a return on a player like that, and now you can go out, trade these 2 picks up, move up, and get the best cornerback in the draft, I think that's a good pick. I think they're going to use these picks to move up. And I think if that's the case, I think this is an S-tier move. I really do. Now, the cornerback thing is going to hurt. I mean, they need defense. They need it. And unfortunately, getting rid of the only defensive piece that they had is not going to work out in the immediate. Is cause for some concern from some fans, and I totally get it. But I do think that they're smart when they draft, for the most part. They've had a couple misses. They're not the best drafting team in the NFL. They've had a couple misses, but I think that they're going to use these in a creative way. And it's just the haul. You know, if this was just a first, I would probably move this down to A or maybe even B tier. But the fact that they're getting 2 thirds next year, I mean, this is what you do. When you're a Super Bowl fringe team, you need to replace some pieces. This is exactly the kind of move you make. And it hurts in the moment, but I think it's a smart move down the road. And for the Rams, I'm giving this an A tier because the Rams are the only team in this league that have shown me that they can trade away picks like this and it works out. And it's smart and they know what they're doing. And I think they're a cornerback away from making it back to the Super Bowl. They were just in the NFC Championship. And giving up a first, that's nothing new to them. They won a Super Bowl giving up 10 years worth of firsts. Now, again, a first and then giving up those that next year's third and those kind of later round picks, it is a little heavy, which is maybe why this isn't an S tier move. But I think it's a smart move for a team that's banking on Matthew Stafford's final MVP few years. I think this is smart. I think this is exactly the kind of move that you make if you're the LA Rams, and I think I think this is probably the overall best move for both teams in this situation. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's therapy session. Stay tuned, where we'll be covering some more free agency talk later this week. Until next time.